Following is brought to you by Falzo Filter Supply Company.
You're listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast.
What smells so bad?
It's strong, but you'll get used to it. Now here's your hosts, Nick Stevenson and
buddy.
Chris Clark.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day it is, wherever you may be listening in the world. Welcome to episode 28 of the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast. My name is Nick Stevenson, and I am just one of your gracious and humble hosts. The Hype Gorilla, Christopher Clark, aka the Hype Gorilla, is in the building, and we have a top fan in the building once again. Mrs. Raquel Stewart, has decided to join us today. She's been supporting us, listening. One of our early supporters from the very beginning.
From jump.
Yeah, I remember. Let's see. Episode 2, we were talking about, after the first episode, we had Banquet that night, and she was one of the dozen people who were like, hey, checked out your podcast. It was dope. Like, we really liked it. Yeah. So we appreciate the support, and we're glad you're finally sitting here in the chair.
Of course. I'm so excited.
What have you been up to during this crazy time we've been living in since 2019?
Living this Corona life.
Ooh. Yes, the Corona life. Do you have some Coronas to go with that Corona life?
No.
You
may find some Dos Equis to go with it.
Okay, I like that. I can deal with that. I like the Dos Equis. When you came on, I wasn't sure what you wanted to do. A lot of people who listen will be like, hey, I want to do Wheel of Spirit. Or I want to do, they listen so they know the type of stuff that we do. There was a specific couple of episodes that I think hit home with you, and it was episodes 16 and 17, the interviews we did with Caitlin and with Courtney, because it's two people who got to come on and kind of speak their truth and tell about their experiences. So I think you said at that point that kind of made you decide, you know what, I got a story I want to tell. And it kind of inspired you to do that. So you're here today to do that. And it's not an easy subject to talk about. I was surprised to hear you say you wanted to tell this story and discuss it. And one of the reasons I was surprised because I don't know you very well, and you're a very well put together person. You were team mom for the Tigers. You were, I believe at one point, were you the president of Tigers? Yes. So, I mean, she's got all her stuff together, and she's one of the people everybody looks up to, and it's hard to, sometimes you forget, like, these are still real life people. They have real life problems. They go through real life stuff. Yeah. So you decided to join us today because you had wanted to tell your story about being sexually abused as a child.
Correct.
Very difficult discussion to have. And I told you that I had a similar experience that I had gone through. And having that, because of that, I realized the seriousness of it, and I wanted to treat this with the respect that it deserved. So I'll tell you the same thing that we tell everybody when they sit in this chair. Number one, I hope this conversation does not make people uncomfortable. Or if it makes you uncomfortable, it should. But I want you to react to that discomfort in the proper way. I don't want you to turn it off and be like, oh, I can't listen to that. You need to hear these stories. You need to know that they're real. You need to know that they exist. And then ask yourself, what can I do to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen? Not only just for your kids, but possibly other kids. There are signs that you can tell if something is going on with a kid that it's just not right. So I know that that's one of the reasons that you wanted to tell this story. How many people know about this experience?
As of right now, it's I would say a handful, 5 to 10 people. Of course, my immediate family.
Right.
It started with my husband. My family knows, and of course, I know that close friends of the family know.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it, but yeah. And that was probably a hard thing, is how are people going to look at me?
Right.
Once, you just, they know something that you don't want anybody to know.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't say too many, but this will definitely be the first time that people within
It's gone
our
public.
town.
Right.
Correct. So
Okay. And it's on the internet now, so the whole world can hear it. But I know that you want something positive to come out of it for somebody.
yes.
And so, just like we did with Caitlin, Courtney, I'm gonna let you tell the story. We spoke last night to kind of lay the groundwork down, and I'm gonna let you tell it. I do have some notes from our discussion, so if there's something that maybe you leave out that I feel like was important, we might go back and check on that. And first of all, I know I speak for Chris also. Thank you so much for trusting
Yeah,
us
absolutely.
on this platform to be the person to tell this story and trusting us to kind of help you do the work of raising awareness for other people. And like I said, I know it's difficult, but we're gonna end on a positive note because
Just like we always do.
there's a silver lining on everything. Yep. So I want to go ahead and let you start to the earliest that you remember. I'll let you tell the story. You lay it out, how old you were, where it happened, and what the dynamic was at that time.
Okay. So I can clearly remember being around the age of 7, 8 years old. Mm-hmm. There was one morning where I can clear as day remember that morning being asleep on my grandma's couch. I was awake, but I didn't want to be awake. Right. I was just going to lay there and pretend like I was still asleep. Mm-hmm. I heard him ask my grandma to go to this back house. There was, their house, and there was a little back house where his mother lived. And my grandma would go and enjoy coffee with her. And he told her, go, my mom needs something, go enjoy coffee, do your thing. Yeah. And in my head, I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, no, don't go. I don't want to hear her leave because I'm in trouble. Mm-hmm. Right. And even though that's the memory I remember clearly, I do know it had to have happened before for me to already have that fear.
Right.
Of course, counselors or the people I've met with later on in life said that your mind blocks it out. Mm-hmm. You don't want to remember those. Yeah. But my grandma did leave. I heard the door shut and I heard the footsteps coming into the living room, and I knew
what was going to happen.
Wow.
And so I want to touch on that a little bit more because you clearly have no recollection of anything that happened before this.
Correct.
But something impacted you emotionally to the point that you knew it was bad news. You knew it was bad news if he left or if she left and you were alone with him. There's a question I want to ask you. I'll let you, because once she left, this is the first time you remember him asking you to do sexual favors for him.
This is the day that I can clearly remember as if it happened yesterday. Okay. I remember every detail,
all the details.
For some reason, it's just this day that I cannot forget.
Can you put your finger on why that is?
I honestly don't know. No. I don't. I wish I maybe did more research.
Of all the times that it happened after that, was this the worst?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's why it
probably
may stick
has
more.
Something to do with it.
But he came over to me and I still pretended like I was asleep and thinking that would send somebody away.
Yeah.
But it didn't. He shrugged me, get up, go into the bedroom. And to make it clear, this was nothing that was done to me.
Right.
I obviously had to perform acts on him.
Right.
And so we did it, and it was over. And at that time, you just want it to be over. The time can't come soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the scary thing is to have a daughter that's 8 now. I mean, I could not even imagine. Yeah. I couldn't imagine a child. How does their mentality even wrap around what's going on and the fear?
Yeah. And also, you knew what he wanted you to do.
Yes.
You were aware of what was happening.
Yes.
And you knew what he wanted to do. Do you remember any details about your relationship with him prior to that? Like, how long had he been with your grandmother?
Since I was a year old.
Since you were a year?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember any other interaction with him before that?
I do remember the car rides. Like if I was with him by myself on multiple occasions. Why? That blows my mind on
Right.
Why you're just with a grown man
Yeah.
and not a blood relative. You know?
Yeah, just a guy your grandma was dating. Right?
Yes. But when sitting in the truck, you know, it was the 2-door truck and it's a bench and you sit in the passenger seat. Well, I had to sit in the middle and my hand had to be on, you know, on him. And like I told Nick, in those occasions, I would pray, one, please just make, you know, let's get where we're going and I don't want this. 2, I hope a big jacked up truck pulls up next to us so they can see inside the truck and be my saving grace and have a witness of what they just saw, because that should never.
No.
So you obviously knew that it was wrong. What are some of the things he would say to you to try to convince you it wasn't? Or
So even during the time this is happening, it was, you like this, you know, you can't tell anybody. This is our secret. If you do tell, you know, they'll be mad at you. Things
So
like
he was trying to normalize it.
right.
yes, and
Trying to manipulate a child into thinking like, hey, this is okay.
Yeah.
You like this. It's like audibly saying, I don't think people realize the level of that mind control. If you hear something and you see something, it confirms it for you. And you're a young 8-year-old child. You're very impressionable at this point. So you're seeing it and you're hearing him tell you while you see it, you like this. That's trying to program you to think that this is okay. And that's just disgusting.
and just the fact of telling me they're going to be mad at you. You're going to pretty much stir up some family stuff here if you go repeat.
Right.
And that's just definitely not.
And obviously, I mean, you believe that.
Of course.
Yeah. So this happened for several years after that. And you said each time you were either riding in a truck with him or you were at their home and he would somehow get your grandmother to leave.
Correct.
And so you knew what was happening when he was trying to get her to leave. Would she always leave the house or would sometimes she just left the room?
Sometimes it was leaving the house.
Okay. But there were other times that she was in the house while this was going on. She was just in another room.
Honestly, not that I can
Okay.
remember.
So she was always leaving completely. Okay. I wanted to clear that up because I
Yes.
wasn't sure when we discussed it the night before.
Do you think that she knew anything was going on, or?
I honestly don't think she did.
Yeah. Which maybe she should have, but well, I'm not saying she should have known because I think most people in their right mind think that something like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, she trusted this person enough to bring him around her grandchildren and her family. So maybe I say she should have known because I told you I've been through similar circumstances.
And see, that's why the way I look at children now and things that are done, my mind thinks completely different. Maybe it's because of my story.
Yeah.
Or do people just really think that nothing will happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's got to be tough, though. I imagine for her it had to be tough to find out after the fact that his strategy was to get her to leave so that he could take advantage of you. So this goes on. You're in, let's see, 8 years old. You'd be what, in the 3rd grade?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that this lasts all the way through junior high?
About 6th grade.
6th grade.
I would say. That's kind of when I got more involved in sports, friends. You're able to go to their house more, and that was kind of my goal at this point, was to be
somewhere other than
anywhere but there.
Yeah, of course.
So how did it affect? I mean, when you're in junior high, you have crushes on boys. You like boys. Like, how did it affect your view of sexuality? I mean, obviously, you knew what sexuality was in way more detail than you should know at that age.
Looking back now, I didn't know it then. I kind of thought the way boys were, the way they talked, you know, I say boys, maybe being boys at that age.
Yeah.
It was just normal. Like, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, no.
Yeah. So if you saw a boy disrespecting a woman, talking about her body or whatever, or saying certain things, that was just normal to you. That's what you expected. Man. So you said around the time that it stopped. What was your relationship with him when he's no longer abusing you, but you know that had been going on? And why do you think it suddenly stopped when you got to be in the 6th grade?
I think he knew maybe I had reached an age where the chances of me talking or I was not as vulnerable. You're not going to manipulate and you just were not going to get away with it anymore.
Right.
Is the reason I think he did. A part of me feels like maybe there was another relative or maybe another victim that was starting to be in the picture. Of course, like I said, at that age, I was kind of doing my own thing and out of sight, out of mind, and I never wanted to turn back and think about it.
Yeah. You were just glad it was over.
Yes, it was over, and I was not going to speak of it. What happened, and I'm just going to move on.
So you kind of blocked it out?
I definitely tried to block it out.
Gotcha.
I did not want to stir up the family chaos.
Right.
Just take it.
Did you feel like at the time that he maybe had a new victim?
I did. I felt like I saw signs. When I was little and this was going on, everyone knew, and he was not shy of it. But I was the princess. I was everything.
Right.
I got everything I wanted as far, if I needed money to go somewhere, if I was hungry, I got, just that overly spoiled type relationship.
Right.
And typically, again, you look back and a grandpa, grandparents, that's just how you are.
Yeah.
But of course, I knew this was different.
Absolutely.
It's even crazy at the time about being spoiled. He had 3 daughters, 2 of them that were near my age, and they could not stand me because of the way he was with me. They felt the jealous, and she, you're spoiling her, giving her everything. And in my mind, I'm thinking, don't spoil me.
Yeah.
Y'all have no idea what I'm having to go through to even don't.
So he had daughters your age. So he's significantly younger than your grandmother?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your grandmother's relationship with him? Did she love him?
Yes. They weren't legally married, but they were together 21 years until that time came to an end. But
so she's probably obviously enamored with this person and doesn't think in her wildest imagination that something like that would happen. At least that's what you hope. That's just tough, man. That's tough. I found out that my grandmother's ex-husband, he ended up cheating on her, and we found out he had a bunch of skeletons in the closet. And I have very faint memories, and I don't think anything happened, but he would just do weird stuff. I'm a young kid. I'm probably 3-4 years old, and he would just, grown-ass man, just walk around naked in the house. And I remember seeing him come. I would sleep. It was kind of weird because when I came over, he slept in a separate bedroom than my grandmother. Mm-hmm. They had a spare bedroom he would sleep in. My grandmother would sleep in her bed, and I would lay some pillows out on the floor. Mm-hmm. And I remember him coming into the bedroom that we were in completely naked and being terrified and trying to pretend I was asleep. And nothing happened that day that I can recall, but it makes me wonder, that's weird. That's really weird. And like you said, sometimes you block some stuff out, but this is also a man who was not my biological grandfather. It was a second, maybe 3rd or 4th marriage that my grandmother had. And it takes a lot of trust to bring just any old person into your house. And it's stuff like that makes some people scared to even do it. But I think about, like you said, you realize stuff later in life, that was kind of odd. And I bet, especially when we get to the point where you get to talk about this, there's probably some people who think back and man, that was really weird. And it's so inconceivable for those people. But like I said, now that you've gone through it, it's unfortunately something you have no choice but to think about. But let's see. So it's possible that he's got other victims, but you're just focused on moving forward. So how were your relationships with the opposite sex from that point forward? Obviously, you go through high school. You do end up married at some point. Like, did it really affect any of that? At this point, is it even on your mind, or you just...
At this point, I mean, I had one serious relationship throughout high school, 14 through 18 years old. And you kind of, that relationship ended, it went bad.
Yeah.
So you another man, you just don't trust. So at this point, you really don't trust men.
Yeah.
You know, men are not good.
Yeah.
I meet my husband, and he seems to be a great guy.
Right.
Still, I have a big wall up. We're at this point, we're together about a year, and I feel you're good. I can trust you. I'll let my wall down, my guard down a little bit. About 6 months into our relationship, I do get pregnant. We have our son, and an incident happened to where, well, let me backtrack. From when the day I had my son, which was in February, and I think I told my husband in October. But throughout those months in between, something just came over me to where this that had happened to me years ago started coming back. Like I was crying throughout the night. I was having nightmares. I could not get this off my mind. And I'm thinking, why? Why is this coming back to me? And it's because I'm looking at my own child who you just love so much.
Yeah.
And these kids, they're so innocent. They don't deserve anything. You know, they're just...
It's inconceivable.
So I really do think that's what triggered it all. Because I go back and I was a child once. I was innocent and I got that taken from me.
Right.
How could somebody go through and take that from a child? So I have bad dreams, and finally my husband's like, what's going on? You need to tell me. And I kind of don't want to. I kind of fight him on it. And finally, I think it was after 2 hours of like an interrogation, I just broke down crying. And I said, this is what's happened years ago. This is who did it. And like you say, people go back and they're like, and he said, and my husband loves everybody.
Yeah.
He said, there was always something off about him. I did not like the way he was. I didn't know what it was, but there was something creepy. And this is it. This is answering my gut feeling.
Yeah.
So Johnny's the first person you told?
Yes.
Out of anybody?
Out of anybody.
Out of anyone.
I never, there was one occurrence where I almost told my roommate when I was 19, but then you're just worried, how are people going to take it? And
so you had one serious boyfriend before getting into, or you had one boyfriend, steady boyfriend. If you don't mind me asking, like, I mean, I know you were young at one point. Like, did you have trouble with intimacy, even not necessarily sexual, but touching, kissing? Like, did that trigger anything in you that?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
The reason I ask is because I remember having that briefly for a little while.
I can tell you it does happen.
Yeah.
And it can be the smallest thing.
Yeah.
Something triggers it.
And poor Johnny, and he literally will go to like grab my hand just to hold my hand. But grabbing my hand, it could.
Don't do that.
Sometimes it won't bother me. Sometimes I will not, and it will flip my mood.
Yeah.
You're like, what happened? What's going on? And I don't want to bring it up again and say, well, kind of traumatized with you grabbing my hand. You're my husband. You should be able to. But
that's tough.
That happens very frequently.
Yeah. That's a lasting impact. That it's not fair.
Right.
That you should have to do that. So this is after your oldest is born.
Correct.
And so this is a couple months. He's a couple months old when you tell.
Yeah, he's about 8 months old.
Okay, and what year is that?
2007.
2007. Okay.
So
What year did you graduate?
2004.
2004. So 3 years later, you are married to Johnny, or you just meet him?
We're dating.
Dating. Okay.
Yes. At this point, I think we've been together a year.
Okay.
Okay.
2 years.
Okay.
2 years.
Okay. So you got that surprise. We're parents. And I mean, I'll tell people the right people, that changes everything for you when you have a child. Some people keep doing the same stuff they were doing when they were immature, but for the right people, that changes everything. And I can't tell you how many times I thought about what happened to me once my child was born, because like you said, you look at them and they're just so innocent, and like how could somebody do that? And in my instance, a lot of the time, the early times that I got molested, I was being molested by another child that was maybe a year or two older than me. So obviously this was happening to them.
Yeah.
And they were just mimicking whatever was happening to them. And then when I got older, it was somebody significantly older than me that was doing it. It was a family member. It was a female, actually. But that, I mean, I always said that it doesn't really affect me because you can't let it. But there's little small things, like you said.
Right.
Like if I meet a person that kind of reminds me of that person, looks like them, like, I'm sorry, I can't be cool with you. I just can't.
Yeah.
Like you might be a really nice person, but the way you wore your hair today got me fucked up. So like,
I
no.
agree.
So it's tough, man. And it's not fair that anybody would have to go through that. I want to get to, because you're holding on to this. Let's see, you were from 8 years old to age 22.
I'm 21.
21. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And Johnny's the first person you told. That's a really long time to be holding on to that. And you're getting to a point where now it's really affecting you with the night terrors, and it's getting bad. And all this time, obviously, you still have to be around this guy. He's still in a
Still part of
relationship
the
with your
family.
grandmother.
Yes.
So talk about those interactions. Like, what were they like? Even, was he still nice to you? Like, how would he treat you once you were older? And
Yes,
he knew you had
everything
the
was
secret?
still very cordial. He wasn't the extreme nice. I was no longer called princess and
Right.
handed money and things like that. But it was cordial. It kind of, in my mind, it is what it is. And
Were
we're
you
just
afraid to
gonna-
let your child be around him?
Yes. My child was not necessarily being around him. My child not leaving my side
Yeah.
Yeah.
with you
Right.
in the same. No, that's definitely not going to happen.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's kind of what, when I did tell Johnny, I did ask him, do not tell anybody. I'm not ready.
Yeah. That's got to be up to you. When nobody can decide that for you. When it's time to out that. But it's also got to be a miserable living to have to be around this person and to be staring, like to have to be in the same room, and like how do
Act
you
like nothing happened.
Yeah, how do you focus on being happy at Thanksgiving or Christmas? Like how does
So I will say, as you got older, like I said, in junior high, I was able to kind of keep my distance. And I know we talked about this a little bit, even at that time of being in 6th grade, close group of friends. I think he had to pick me up from school. We were going somewhere where I had to be at home after school with him there. And I remember walking up to the house, seeing his truck there, and great. He kind of was on shifts.
right?
He's here. I can't be here. I tell him I need to go to a friend's house. We have a project to work on. I need a ride. That poor girl, I show up to her front doorstep, and she's like, why are you here? And those were her words. Like, why are you here? And I'm sure the look in my eyes, I mean, of course, she's another girl my age. She doesn't understand.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I didn't have any, I just come in to see what you were doing.
She knew something was off though.
And only thing my goal was I need to just be inside your house. I need to step foot so he can drive away.
Right.
I will figure out what I do from here.
Yeah.
But I needed somewhere to go. And I'm not telling her this. I'm just making up excuses on why I just showed up on your front doorstep.
Yeah. Wow. That's tough. So I want to talk about, let's get back to 2008. You said it's around the holidays. We talked about this briefly last night. So your son's almost a year, or he is a year old at this point, and you and Johnny, unfortunately, have had to hold on to this for an entire year that he's known. What's the breaking point? Like, when does it just get to be too much?
I think once Johnny knew and I had to be around him, he was still very like the king. Like, the end of the table, everyone's going to cater to me. I'm going to tell you what I want. You're going to bring it to me. he did do those type of things
Yeah.
with me. And this day, he said, make me an iced tea. And we were getting ready to eat. And I look at him, my grandma can get it for you. Somebody
Yeah.
can, but
Who the fuck you think
Yeah,
you're
I was about to
talking
say,
to?
who the fuck
Yeah.
you think you're talking
and
to?
of course now
Yeah.
I feel my husband knows I'm older. I may just talk back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I sucked it up. I grabbed the glass. I know I did it with an attitude.
Oh, tell me you spit in it. You ever see The Color Purple?
No.
You got to watch that movie. I'm sorry. If you've seen The Color Purple, you know what I'm talking about. The patriarch of the family is at the house, and Whoopi Goldberg plays a girl named Celie. She can't stand him. And he's one of those, you get a woman to iron for you. Like, he was very
Yes.
masculine, macho type dude. So he tells her to go make her a drink. And she totally like hawks a loogie in it and gives it to him. And he drinks the whole thing. It's probably one of the best scenes of the whole movie. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
It's funny you say that because that kind of reflects on his personality.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
That's
Somebody who's gone through what you went through, I will tell you, The Color Purple is an excellent film. For people who've gone through, like, it might, I don't know, because Celie's a young girl who is raped as a young child and ends up having a baby from the man she thinks is her father. It ends up turning out not to be her biological father. It's an intense movie. It has a happy ending though. If anybody's seen it, I recommend it. It's a Steven Spielberg movie from the 80s. It's an excellent movie. But anyway, yeah.
I'm gonna go
But
check that out.
yeah, if you watch it, you tell me if the men in that movie remind you. I mean, I hope they don't too much, but
Right.
yeah. But yeah, so I'm when
They
you're telling
carry
me he
these
told
traits.
you right, when you're telling me he tells you to go make this tea, I'm like, God, I hope you spit in it.
So I do go make the tea and I don't hand it to him. I set it on the table. And again, I think there's a little attitude behind that glass.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I think, triggered it for him.
Yeah.
Here, we are a month later and it gets kind of brought to my attention that I've had an attitude towards him. And
Yeah.
yeah, I sure do.
he brought that up or somebody else did?
He did.
The
He brought
nerve on
this up.
him
He
to do
So
that.
he had the fucking nerve.
He had the balls.
Bitch.
that
Bitch,
was
like, I'm-
very shocking.
Trying to hold my composure throughout the story because,
Yeah, it's tough.
dude, I just, like I would,
We have girls.
yes,
And you have a girl. And whether it's a girl or boy, you have children
children in general.
in general. And it's just, but the nerve on this dude,
Get me a
To-
fucking guy.
15 years later, to be bossing you around, like, oh. I mean, he has no idea. You could have just blurted it out
I
right then and
could've.
there. Like, wow. But that just shows the arrogance,
But at that point in time, nobody knew except for Johnny what was going on.
Correct.
yeah.
And I will even say at that, I'm remembering this, that was probably Thanksgiving. So in between then and the end of the year, maybe the end of that month, I'm just over there visiting my grandma on a normal day.
Right.
And she kind of talks to me about them having talks about getting married.
Oh, wow.
And in my head, I'm thinking, no,
Yeah, don't do that.
no.
Yeah.
And I do. I tell her. And typically I would want to just, okay.
Right.
I do. I tell her. And I said, if there's one thing you ever listen to me about, let it be this. Do not marry him.
Yeah.
And she said, well, why? I said, I can't tell you. Just listen.
Yeah.
Do not do it. I'll tell you one day.
Yeah.
And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm getting a little bit more comfortable. Johnny knows. And
You're trying to work your way to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do tell her, and that was that. That was at the front door, and I walked out, and that wasn't even spoken about again.
Wow.
My reasoning.
So after the holidays, 3 weeks later, you get some news that your grandmother and this person are not going to be together anymore because of what?
There were some cheating allegations that I guess the other woman, her husband had, I guess, this gut feeling that something was going on with her, hired a private investigator. Not only do they report to the person they were hired by, but I guess they also send letters to the other spouse.
Right.
So
I didn't know that.
Full on cheaters. Should
Yeah.
show it with
Yes.
the camera.
Yeah.
So, from my knowledge and what I was told, my grandmother had received a letter. There was pictures that were taken for proof,
Damn.
and I'm assuming in the letter they write down the
Yeah.
stuff that they've witnessed. So she kind of calls him out on it. She has her proof, and my mom comes over to the house and tells me this has happened and he's living somewhere else and they're going to be separating. And we don't think they're going to be getting back together.
Yeah. That's got to be music to your ears.
It was. And then she follows up with this statement of, oh, and by the way, he's mentioned to Grandma that you've had an attitude lately. And again, Johnny and my mom
This is your mother telling you this.
Yes.
Okay.
They're sitting down in our formal dining room, and I'm kind of just leaned up against the door frame. And when she says that, I kind of turn around on the door frame to now where I'm in the hallway. And Johnny says, and I start crying. I'm crying because this is the moment I can't take it no more.
Right.
Yeah.
And Johnny says, and of course I had told him, do not say anything when he did find out. This was his moment to kind of call me out on it and say, I can't do this anymore, you know?
Yeah. It's time.
Yes. And he says, you can't do this anymore. You need to tell her. And in my head, I'm crying, but in my head, I'm like, I could kill you right now for just calling me out.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he did.
Yeah, you needed that nudge.
I did.
You may not have ever got to that point. You never know.
So, but I feel like at that moment, my mom knew. She did not question what was going through her
That
head.
was a weird question for her to bring up after the fact of saying they broke up also. I mentioned that to you last night when we talked. Like, that's a weird sequence of events. Like, he's cheating, they're breaking up. Oh, by the way, you've had an attitude with him. I don't know if you've had this conversation with your mother or not, but it seems like she kind of knew something might have been off about the situation.
Yeah, maybe. And then I was also reflecting back on what we had talked about. I thought maybe the conversation she had recently had with my grandma, finding out their situation. My grandma had brought this up because, again, this is all within weeks. And maybe that was the one time she had spoken with my grandma and it was brought up, and this is the first time I'm seeing her since that conversation.
Or maybe she wondered if you had any suspicion about him having an affair or anything like that, because that probably would have made you have attitude towards him as well. I don't know. There's so much speculation. I can't tell you what to do. I hope you and your mother maybe get to have that conversation one day, if it comes to that. Because I know that you told me last night that unfortunately what's come with this whole situation is you have had some resentment towards the adults who were in your life at that time for just not being more aware. And as much as we've talked about maybe you can understand why they wouldn't, the fact of the matter is that they were the adults and you were the child. And as a parent, it's your job to protect your children no matter what. So that's got to be difficult. But I mean, once that's out there and you've told your mom, like, how does that feel? Like, now somebody who's been there the whole time knows. How do you feel?
It feels like the weight was just lifted off. That I've told my mom, who you're supposed to be able to talk to about all of this, and it was that moment that I will never forget. That I'm free, and my mom is going to take care of this. So
you said she didn't really have a reaction. Go ahead.
There was no questions asked. Like, she believed everything, and everything was.
Yeah. So when Johnny said, you can't do this anymore, you need to tell her. And my mom came over, she hugged me so tight and she said, did he ever do anything to you? And I am crying to the point where I can't talk. But I remember my head being in her shoulders and I just shook my head yes. At that point, I also want to clear it up with her that he was not doing anything to me. As bad as all of it is,
Yeah, you
I
had
feel like
that before.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain that because it is all bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I feel it could be
If
a
there's,
Yes.
if you want to try to find a silver lining, like,
That's it.
your innocence was taken, but not
Yeah.
completely, I guess. So, yeah.
So I tell her yes. And immediately, I mean, she's on the phone with my stepdad. They're separated at the time, but he raised me and they got separated early on. But I'm still in contact with him.
Right.
She calls him because that's who we call. And she was crying, of course, telling him, this has happened. And this is kind of where it all starts. The adults are like, we always thought something was off. We always thought those hugs were weird type deal.
Yeah.
But at this point, you're just trying to, they were all trying to get my mom to calm down because she's ready to go hurt someone.
Yeah.
And my mom will do it.
Right.
Yeah. Like that's one thing I can say sitting in a position. Like if I was to ever hear something like that being done to my child, the dude would never see his day in court. Because I mean, even off allegations, as crazy as that says, or as crazy as that sounds, just the thought of that happening to one of my children,
You'd lose it.
Dude, all rationality would go out the window.
Yeah.
So we did. I mean, I had my mom losing it, my stepdad losing it, family members wanting to lose it. And at this time, I'm still having to keep my composure because I have to talk them out of doing anything that they will regret. Like, I can't lose you. Like, it's been this long. Let me take care of it. And that will be through.
Exactly. They got to understand, like, I went through this. I'm the one it happened to. And if I'm not about to go kill this person, like, we need to all calm down. Like, I know you're angry. I know you're hurt, but imagine how I feel. Let's get justice the way that we're supposed to get it.
That's how I had to kind of lay it out.
Because if somebody as much as you would feel that way, Chris, you go kill this dude. Now you're going to prison. Maybe not for life, but you're definitely going to prison. And you're not a part of your kid's life anyway. And then who knows what happens to them moving forward? Like, you say all rationale would go out the window. You wouldn't be thinking about that.
Yeah.
But in a situation like that, like, you have to, as angry as you feel, like, you could make a decision that would impact your children even worse. I don't want to say even worse, but just continue to negatively impact them. And in that moment, what you hope, number one, is that your kids never go through that.
Of course.
You never want them to go through that. And you do everything you possibly can so that they don't. But if that is to happen to them, they are going to need you to be there. And if you do something that causes you not to be there, it's an unthinkable situation. And when you tell your family, like, I understand the anger, but it's crazy. I told you this last night. You're the victim, but it's felt like you're just still trying to protect everybody else. Like, you're trying to hold it together. And I commend you for that so much.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like,
because it happened to you. Like, and we said before, your life could have went so many different ways. You could have fallen into drugs. You could have fallen into alcoholism or acting out. There's a lot of young women and men, unfortunately, who, when that stuff happens to them, they start to act out sexually because they just have this completely unhealthy view of intimacy and sexuality. And it's tough. And you successfully navigated through that. And I'm sure at that point, once you got that lifted off your shoulders, you're like, no, I want to see this through to the right conclusion.
Yes.
And that can't happen if everybody flies off the handle. So now that everybody knows, now everybody's going to have to be careful about how to confront this person about this. Because you told me he had a little bit of stature in the community. If you want to talk more about that.
Yes. So even growing up, teenage years, he worked for the city, not this city, but he worked within a city, and he continuously would get promoted throughout the law enforcement side.
Right.
And it would kill me because I'm thinking, I don't want anything good to happen for you. I could care less if you kept bringing good news to the family.
Right.
But it continuously happened. He ended up being a fire marshal for the city. And I still don't understand kind of where that's at, but I understand it's another promotion he was getting.
Right.
So I'm like, here we go again. And that's kind of where he was when this kind of broke loose.
He was a fire marshal.
Yes.
Okay. So he's got some stature, and he's got it in the law enforcement community.
Yes. And he had worked, prior to that, he was kind of a jailer and a dispatch. So when you're affiliated, I guess, in all of those job titles, you all know each other.
Yeah.
I could say your name and people know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that. So when you go to the authorities and you're telling them so-and-so did this, they know who so-and-so is.
Yes.
That's got to be hard. Were you afraid to do that?
Yes, because I'm hoping, one, I've waited this long that you believe me enough to take my story.
Which is a problem.
And then two, he's within y'all's, one of y'all's.
Yeah, he's one of your own, and you're going to have to do the right thing.
Yes.
And unfortunately, in the system, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen.
So that was kind of a fear. My mom does calm down. They leave because my grandma's at work, also working a night shift at this time. And they have to tell her in person and pretty much tell her to be careful, going home, don't make any contact, and nobody needs to tell him, tip him off in any sort of way. My mom comes back to my house and she says, do you want to go talk to the police? And I said, yes. Mm-hmm. She takes me up there. This is now at this time, it's like 10 o'clock at night. We go up to the city, talk to somebody at the window who definitely treated us like they did not have time for us.
Yeah.
And my mom, and he says, like, what do you want? What are you here for? My mom tells him in a rude manner exactly what it is. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go. Like, I'm going to have to start talking to strangers. And this just got awkward really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like, okay. So they send us upstairs to talk to a lady who was very sweet. Let me talk, taking down her notes. And the minute she asked me for his name, and I have to say his name.
Right.
She's looking down right in her notes. She stops in her tracks and looks up, and she is almost speechless. And she says, ours that works here? And I say, yes.
Wow.
And she just shakes her head yes and keeps going.
So she lost her poker face for a moment.
Definitely. And that was just another real situation that just set in with me on I'm in full force going with this.
Like, you're doing it.
Yes, I am doing this. And
it's still an uphill battle. I mean, now that you've conquered your own fear, now you have to deal with everything about this system that unfortunately is set up to go against victims. You said you were worried about them believing you. That's a problem. So many times victims come forward, and I think our natural thought process is, it's skepticism. It's really weird for me because I'm someone who has both been a victim of sexual abuse, and then I've been accused of doing something that I did not do, and I know what it feels like to be guilty before proven innocent. And that's something that never leaves you. So it's a real conflict with me. I just feel like you should take anything that somebody says seriously until otherwise proven. But at the same time, if there's a balance, don't treat the other person as if they're guilty just because of an accusation. It's a very fine line you have to walk. But I think there's too many victims who just don't get believed, and it gets swept under the rug. And there was so much danger of that happening because he was within their community. So that had to be nerve-wracking for you. But you do get some law enforcement on your side. I think you told me that somebody who ended up working the case, the family knew.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't want to mention his name because we don't want to get him in trouble.
Right.
But
and that was actually how I got upstairs to talk to this lady, because the guy downstairs at the window did not care to help at all. My stepdad made the phone call, and he called, I guess, the lady upstairs or someone who came down and got us. And otherwise,
so he was well plugged in also. Oh,
very well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now they know. And do they ask you if you know of any other victims?
They do not there. That evening they do not.
Okay. So what's the plan?
They send us home, and she said, they'll be in contact. Mm-hmm. I think it may have been a day or so later. I do get contacted. At this point, it's Harris County. Yeah. It's a DA, that sort of detective type. And he comes to meet with me, and we kind of have to get a game plan together.
Right.
At this point, we need a confession, because that's the only way we're going to get them.
Yeah, there's no evidence so many years later, so yeah.
Yes, I meet him downtown, and I would really like to go find out where the center was. I feel like this day was all just a big fog. I didn't even drive down there. My mom drove me down there. I meet with him. I have to tell my story by audio. I have to tell my story by being recorded. They ask you multiple questions, and they do that multiple questions, same question, just in a different way type thing.
Yeah.
To try to make sure your story stays the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
And within those questions afterwards, he does ask, is there anybody else you think that could be a victim? Because the more people, obviously the better the case.
Right.
I give him 2 people I think it could be. One, they want to talk to these girls. It's kind of neat to see, how they investigate and find these people. I haven't seen one of them in years, but they were able to just go knock on these houses and tracking them down.
You just gave them a name.
They find them.
Yeah.
And that girl who was actually my age, she was part of his family. It was his niece. She tells him she doesn't remember.
Right.
She doesn't know. Come to find out, a little bit later, her reasoning for that was her mom said, we cannot turn him in. He helps pay our bills.
Oh, damn.
So,
Wow.
Whether that's true or not, it's very believable. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it for one second. That's how that kind of went down.
Damn.
It stinks because I would have loved the support and for that girl. Honestly, I could imagine if she's still holding
justice
it
for her.
Yes, right. I couldn't imagine still having to live with that. The other one, she was still young at the time, and they do talk to her parents, and they say, we want to meet with her. We want to talk to her, because they have their ways of talking to kids and asking certain questions without just being blunt about it. And of course, you're going to scare somebody by asking them a direct question.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, the parents and the dad,
Declined.
kind of took it amongst himself to go ask the daughter. And I think it was more of that rage and you better hope my daughter says no type thing, because he probably would have done something he would have regretted.
Right.
So in the manner he did ask, the answer from her was no.
Yeah.
Whether that one's true or not, I don't know. And if it is, I hope one day she's able to talk about it, at least just because I know the feeling of getting it off of your shoulders and what it does for you.
Yeah.
So
and like I said, not everybody successfully navigates that. There's no telling. There's a lot of horror and bad stories with bad, not happy endings that come from that. So there's no cooperating witnesses. There's no other testimonies. So now you got to get a confession.
So at that point, yes, he's like, you are by yourself. We have to get a confession. Here's my idea. And his idea is to get him on the phone through a phone call and have him confess in something we don't know what we're going to say. How do you call somebody?
Yeah. And that sounds like one of those things that like you hope you can do, but the odds of them being like, yep, I did that, are so slim to none, at least for most people. It's like throwing something at the wall.
Especially
and seeing
somebody
if it
who's
sticks.
affiliated with law enforcement.
Right.
You would think there's a red flag somewhere for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
at this point, you're throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing how many noodles stick.
Yes.
But
And
you agree to do it.
yes, I do. I'm willing to do anything I have to, because I want to prove, I want him to go down for what he did.
But now all the people you've confronted and told this story to now you got to talk about this to the man who did it to you.
Yes.
That's difficult.
Yes.
But were you ready?
I thought I was.
Yeah.
Which I was. The detective meets us at a house, and we kind of go in the bedroom, and he said, I don't know how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. And something just goes off in my head, like, you better find a way to figure this out.
Yeah.
You just have to go into like this character mode and make it happen. And I look at this detective and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And he said, sounds like you got it. I'm like, I have to.
Yeah.
I have to make this happen.
Yeah.
So we do. I call him. He answers. And just the sound of his voice, it's something that I thought there for a minute I would never have to hear again. Never have to deal with him again.
Yeah.
and you just have to stay strong because you just want to freak out.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so
I can't imagine.
the story I have to I came up with was, this is me, and I give them, they used to call me Nikki. My middle name is Nicole. So I tell them, it's Nikki. I kind of wanted to talk to you about something. And he automatically goes to, what happened with me and your grandma, that had nothing to do with you. It's not true. And I'm kind of like, why would you even think I'm calling you about that? I don't care. Like, that's probably the best thing that's happened.
Yeah.
And so I said, no.
That was your first clue that he was dumb, though.
Yeah, for real.
True.
Thinking back now, I'll let you continue, but that was your first clue that he was not a very bright guy.
I said, no. I said, I need to talk to you about what you used to do to me when I was little. And kind of went silent. And he says, let me pull over. I'm driving. And I can hear
I don't know if we mentioned,
panic.
but you're recording this conversation.
Yes, this is being recorded for
The
this
detective
to be
is
yes.
here. Okay.
Yeah, it's something that was attached to a phone.
Right.
I almost feel like they even had to use a landline phone.
Old school.
It was all had to be.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, their equipment's pretty. They have it.
Yeah.
So I tell him. So he tells me he needs to pull over. I can hear the panic in his voice immediately, and my heart starts to race. Like, here goes nothing.
Yeah.
Here I go. And he says, first he says, I'm so sorry. What used to happen, I'm so sorry, and he confesses.
Yeah.
From jump.
Immediately confesses.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it wasn't but 30 seconds to a minute later that he's just spilling the beans. And at this point, my heart just drops. I'm happy. Me and this detective are smiling, high-fiving.
I'd have been like, okay, bye, see you later.
Bye.
And the detective was
Bye.
like, big thumbs up. We got it.
Yeah.
And then he flips and he says, wait, hold on. You do remember, though, that you used to ask me to do this. You enjoyed it and kind of just went.
Oh, dude, no. He had to have known.
And I'm looking like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare
Yeah.
you
First of
say
all,
and accuse me?
if he realized in that moment that he was possibly being recorded, did he honestly think that
would have helped?
that would help his case and be like,
Fucking idiot.
yeah,
Oh my god.
And I did tell him, I said, I've been seeing a counselor. And of course, this is all false.
right,
I've been seeing a counselor, and the only way I can get through this and have closure with it is for you to say, talk about it with you.
yeah, and he brought
And
that
that's
hook, line, and
whenever
sinker. Yeah,
he gave me that closure for sure.
Wow.
so you got him.
I
I'd
did.
have hung up and be like, gotcha, bitch.
Once we
But-
did, the detective was very happy.
Yeah.
I opened the door and I just start bawling, crying.
Yeah.
Because it's still just all real. Like, everything I've lived through is just still
Yeah.
happening, and it's coming. I can feel the closure of it. Truly. I remember just hugging my mom and crying, and all I said was, I told you I wasn't lying. Nobody had
Yeah.
ever thought I was lying,
Yeah.
but it's like,
Yeah, you're
finally y'all
vindicated.
hear the truth from him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it was kind of a weird celebration type day
yeah.
because I felt, our case was,
You have a recorded confession
Yes.
that this happened. So, yeah, I can imagine the emotion going through that. And so you have your confession. How quickly do they move to putting out a warrant for his arrest?
that happens very quickly.
Yeah.
I would say within a day or two, they're already looking for him. They actually try to get a setup happening to where he's arriving somewhere and they're going to arrest him. He does find out, and he does go put like a non-arrest bond out on himself, where I was trying to explain to Nick, I don't know exactly what it is, but
Yeah,
I
I don't know
know
how they work either.
you kind of go to a bail bondsman and you pay for your bond, and you kind of get like processed through the system, but you're not going to sit in jail and wait for the whole.
You're bonded out as soon as you're booked.
Yeah.
Basically, they
That's
book
how
you,
I
they put you in a
understand it.
holding tank, and then you're gone.
Yes.
That is the most ridiculous shit I think I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah, I hear you. So
he does that, and he
he doesn't even know that, or maybe he has a feeling that the police have been tipped off. first of all, I want to say kudos to all of the law enforcement. Nobody went to him and be like, hey, by the way, so-and-so came in here and told us this happened. You might want to lawyer up. Like, nobody told him anything.
Right.
And if they did, then he's just really dumb. But, I mean, in order to get that confession, he has to have no idea what's going on.
Correct.
And the fact that he works in that community and the people who needed to keep it hush-hush kept it hush-hush and did their job, I say, bravo to them. So he does this no jail bond. So he technically kind of gets arrested but doesn't get arrested. And then now it goes to trying to get him indicted. And so he is indicted for, now, I told you when we were talking, like, yeah, this doesn't have a statute of limitations. Anytime you decided to come forward. Now, that's for sexual assault, but apparently that's not what they were charging him for because he didn't do anything to you. So what was the charge that they were giving him?
Child sex abuse.
Child sex abuse. Mm-hmm. And that apparently does have a statute of limitations, which is ridiculous.
That first night when I went and talked to that first lady upstairs, she's the one who had said, you're still within the statute of limitations. It's from the last time it happened till now. And it was within 10 years is what she had said.
So there's a 10-year statute on it. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Yes. And I was just barely right in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you just, wow.
Yes.
Okay. Let me whew. Let me take a deep breath real quick. Okay. So he's indicted and you're facing the possibility of having to tell this story all over again, but this time in front of a 12-person jury and a judge and your whole family there. But you have this confession, so you have to feel pretty confident. So I imagine you had split feelings on that. Like, I want to get him, but I mean, I've been on the stand and I wasn't having to tell something that sensitive. Like, what was your thought process? Like, what was the best case scenario for you that this was going to go to?
I can say the first time I think I was tested on if this is really what I want to do. Shortly after the whole non-arrest bond thing happens and it's kind of out there and he's aware of it, the law enforcement, word got around quickly. Yeah. It broke out on the news. It was my grandmother was getting phone calls from people who live in Mexico. It was on their news.
Damn.
And as much as like you just don't want everybody to know your business, it made it all the way over there. And so that's what told us to put on our news. And I seen it come across the news, seen his mugshot. Mm-hmm. In the thought of now not just immediate family knows, which I was kind of okay about because you do get their support. You have family, friends all over. And they were kind of well known because in that career path, you meet a lot of people and I was kind of the granddaughter everyone knew of. So it just went hand in hand.
And you're supposed to stay anonymous in that situation.
So I did. In the news, I did.
In the news you were.
Yes.
But you know how, I mean, small town.
For sure.
Word gets around.
There was no doubt I knew.
Yeah,
and it's just that embarrassment that people knew what I had went through. And
but you got to see it through to the end. So that was a test of, am I going to do this?
Yes. Can I go and speak in front of people about what I had been through?
Okay. So what ends up taking place? I know you told me that first he pleaded not guilty.
Correct.
Which, if he had a lawyer who was worth a damn, his lawyer tells him, bro, you confessed on tape.
Yeah.
So they start offering him plea deals. And me and Chris were discussing this earlier, and I wanted to get clarification from you. Before they offer him a plea deal, do they have to confer with you that you are okay with that plea being given to him?
Yes. And I will say it went through the court for 2 years. This wasn't over immediately.
Yes. The justice system is very slow.
And I never knew.
Yes.
I did not know I was going to have to continue this for 2 more years.
Yeah. Because what his lawyer does is he just goes and resets all the hearings and kicks the can down the road as far as he can until the judge says, hey, this has been 2 years. Like, we need to do something about this.
Right.
Yeah.
When he pleads not guilty, I would get phone calls from the DA every now and then, just kind of keeping me updated. But there was the one phone call, which kind of was the last I remember being in class, and I get a phone call, and it's the DA saying he's going to plead guilty. He knows he's, and I think at this point the lawyer had already collected all of his money and
Right.
and then was like, yeah, there's nothing I can do for you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So he's going to plead guilty, and this is what we're going to offer him as his plea deal. Unfortunately, the jail time, his record's clean. Had he had more, stuff on his record, maybe we could get him jail time, but it's going to be a slap on the hand.
How much do you think being in law enforcement helped him keep his record clean? There's no telling what this dude had done before.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's no telling. It's just, and it's, it's a case by case basis. At least it should be. You can't say cut and dry, oh, this guy's record's clean, so we're not going to give him jail time. Like, bro, he molested a child from the time that they were 8.
I don't give a fuck about your record.
Right. Like, that should hold enough weight on your record to say this person needs to be in jail.
Yeah.
You would think.
Right. Yeah. So they tell you he's not going to jail.
No. They do want to give him, this is the part I can remember, if it was 5 years or 15 years of probation. I knew there was a 5 somewhere within those.
You said
those
15
numbers.
years probation, but he's only registered as a sex offender for 5 of those.
Yes.
Yeah, fuck no.
So I whenever I walk out of class, I'm standing in the hallway and they're giving me all of this news, and I kind of just lose my shit.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely not. They said, well, if you want to fight this, you got to go to trial and you got to get on stand, and you're going to have to fight this, and don't know if that's something you want to do. And I said, listen here, I have to deal with this for the rest of my life, and he will too.
Right.
There's no way this man is going to be registered as a sex offender for 5 years.
Yeah.
He's going to, because of their, I guess the restrictions they have as a sex offender.
Right.
You're telling me he cannot be around children or certain things for 5 years? No, he's.
That's.
Yeah.
He
and
needs,
so I looked up, because you sent me the article that was in the paper about the incidents, and what he was charged with carried a maximum sentence of 20 and as little as probation. So you had to decide, if I go through a trial and I get on the stand and I tell my story, are they going to convict him and give him worse than what they're offering? The reason that's tricky is as sure as you think that this man's guilty, I mean, he's got a confession tape.
right.
You're leaving it up to 12 people. There's no telling what could happen.
Right.
Maybe he gets off. And then then your family's going to be really pissed.
Yeah.
Then dude's
so
probably
I hadn't
getting
even,
hurt.
at that point, I hadn't even thought about that. I'm like, I'm taking this trial and he will get punished.
Yeah.
But when I do tell her I want him registered as a sex offender for life and live through the hell he deserves to, she said, okay, we will go, I guess they counter it and say, this is what she wants, and this is, if you want to plead guilty, this is what you're going to have to take.
Right.
And I got a phone call back saying he agreed. He will take
So he
that
agreed
deal.
to probation and
Probation
registered for life. Okay.
life.
Did you have an opportunity to say, no, I want to go to trial?
No. I think I...
They
And if I
they were
did-
suggesting that you...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I hate to say this, but they know that anything can happen in a trial. And also, if they get a guilty plea, that saves them a whole lot of time and it goes on their record. And that's the kind of stuff they care about. That's tough. Because the reason I wanted, because me and Chris were talking about this plea deal and we are like, that plea deal is crap. Like, this dude belongs under the jail. And I said, I think that Raquel had an opportunity to say, no, I don't want him to get a plea. Like, let's take this. I didn't know if that was the case or not. So
And
we wanted to
I'm
ask
sure
you that.
I maybe
Because-
could have,
Right.
but they were maybe kind
They
of
want to
pushing
make sure
his-
the victim is getting justice, but they also want to make sure the person doesn't get away with it.
Right.
So that's unfortunately how the system works. So he doesn't go to jail.
No.
He's on probation, which, he could end up in jail if he violates that probation. Do you know how long the probation was?
I honestly think it was 5 years.
Really? Wow. 5 years
And
probation.
my grandma had a dream. She said this dream was as real as it gets, and
Yeah.
he did something to mess up and provoke that probation, and he'd be in jail.
He would be in jail.
And so at that point, I'm like, great, but it never happened.
Yeah. So this man walks the streets today.
Today. I do know my mom has seen him, and she kind of loses her stuff.
Yeah.
He's with a lady, and come to find out, this lady has some daughters.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the lady.
So wait a minute. This man is a registered sex offender, and he convinced a young woman with girls to be in a relationship with him. Guys, it's really easy. It's called the internet. There'll be red dots all over the map. They tell you where they are, what they did.
So the thing with him, the first name is a lot longer, so he kind of just makes it a nickname out of his name. And so if you go to search him by what you think his name is, he's not going to pull up. So my mom,
man, still getting away with
yes,
shit.
He sees my mom, and him and the other lady leave. Well, my mom goes out to the parking lot. Her friend goes with her. At the time, her friend's saying, I don't know what just happened, but I saw the look in your face, and I knew I needed to go wherever you were going. And it was out to the parking lot, and my mom told the lady, do you know this man? Do you know anything about him? Because I can tell you. And she tells the lady everything. She said, if you don't believe me, go look him up, but make sure you look up this name.
Oh, wow.
And kind of left it at that.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen the movie Law Abiding Citizen.
Oh, yeah. That, hands down, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Have you seen this movie?
No.
Okay.
It seems like I should watch movies more.
It is.
I'll give you a synopsis, but there's a line in that movie. Gerard Butler plays a man who is like ex-CIA, like special forces or something.
Definitely need to see this movie.
Yes. Oh yeah, shirt off.
My heart's racing.
There's a buck naked scene, so you'll be happy. So Gerard Butler is like ex-special forces. He's trying to live a civilian life. These two men come in his house and murder and rape his wife and his daughter, and he survives somehow.
They attempt to kill him.
To kill him. He survives. Jamie Foxx plays a district attorney who is prosecuting the two gentlemen. And long story short, they both take a plea deal. One of them takes a plea deal. One guy rats the other guy out. He takes a plea. He rats out the guy who really was just kind of there. He wasn't doing anything. The guy that raped his wife and his daughter, he ends up getting off. And Jamie Foxx says to him when he's clearly upset about this. He says, "Hey man, some justice is better than no justice at all." Clearly, he does not agree with that. In this movie, if you watch, like, he goes and he takes matters into his own hands.
It is like the term "fucking epic" doesn't even describe it.
Yeah,
like the dude.
He takes matters into his own hands. It's a wild film, but I brought it up to say that saying "some justice is better than no justice at all." That's how the justice system sees it, but they're not sitting in your chair. They're not looking at this from the view of a victim, unfortunately. They have statistics. They know that, hey, if I get a 97% conviction rate, that's going to mean me making it to the next step in my career. And that's what's wrong with a lot of things in the world. It's all about money and power.
For sure.
And meanwhile, you're going through some real life shit. And this man is walking the streets. It could happen to somebody else. Statistically, it probably has or will. And that's the unfortunate part. Especially, he's got to be feeling like he got away with it. Yeah. He's got to be feeling that way. And that's unfortunate. We're not going to think about that because you know what? He will be judged in his final days. And
there you go.
That is something I believe 100%. You, on the other hand, you have to continue with life. You did the hardest thing that you could have possibly done. You confronted it and you got it out there and you searched for justice. Whether or not you truly got it, like I said, we'll leave that to the man upstairs. But I'm just proud of you for, number one, coming in and telling this story. for going through it and being as successful as a human being as you have been. You're a great mother, a great wife. You're involved in the community. You know, you've been a working mother and a stay-at-home mother. You've done it all. And successfully. And look, everybody has their problems. I'm sure John will tell you, you know, there's some hangups here and there. That's natural. But I would say bravo to you. Like, you successfully navigated through a very difficult situation that there are a lot of people who don't successfully do so.
And handled it with such composure and decorum. Like, you address that situation like I could never see myself addressing it in that manner. I'm just...
And you're a mom now.
Yeah.
You have your own kids to think about. So tell me how this all has affected Raquel Stewart today. How has it affected, number one, your relationships you have with everybody in your family now that it's out there and they know that it happened?
I would say everyone's good. It's kind of something in the past. I talk about it more with my brother.
Yeah.
Growing up, we were together everywhere. Yeah. Anywhere we stayed, it was me and him. And he just has a lot of questions. And sometimes they'll just randomly he'll just come up with them and want to ask me. And I know like maybe a month ago, we stayed up on the phone till about 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And just talking and going over. And of course, my brother still just wants to see that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Not alive.
Yeah.
And the same for him. He doesn't understand how I just stay so calm. And his biggest question is, what would ever happen if you saw him and ran into him? And I tell him, I would look at him in the eye. I'm not trying to have a conversation with you.
Right.
But look at me in the eye.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. I'm living.
Yeah.
You didn't ruin me.
I could let it make or break me, and you did not break me.
Yeah.
And I'm living proof of.
And
he does not have to.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. You said it perfect. You didn't let him break you. You didn't let him change the course of your life. Like, you took control of the situation, and that's a beautiful thing. Do you feel like your family's closer? Are you closer to certain members of your family now that they know what you went through as a kid?
No, I mean, I would say we've always been a close family. We still are. It's just something I know you just don't bring it up, especially we have a very small family.
Right.
And it's pretty much just me and my brother, my mom, my grandma.
Tight circle.
Very.
Okay.
So
you guys felt like once you talked about it and it was out there, no need to rehash it or anything like that. Now you mentioned this, and I don't know if you want to talk about it. You did mention as a kid and realizing that you were the child, it was the adult's job to protect you, that you have had some resentment towards the adults who were around, that you ended up having to go through that. Is that something you even want to address right now, or?
Yeah, and I will say I mean, there's some days now that I'll have an angry day. For some reason, it'll be on my mind, and I can't shake it. And whenever you go back and think about it all, of course, you just want to blame the adults.
Right.
Why were you not there? How could you not see? And if you did see, like everyone says afterwards, I thought I saw some weird stuff. Why?
Why didn't you say anything?
And was it just something uncomfortable that you hope that's not happening?
Yeah.
But I mean, I just see it so different.
You didn't want to face the reality of what if that is true.
And a part of me, I mean, I want to understand, but being in my shoes, there's just no excuse.
Is it a conversation you said it happens sporadically, so you're not constantly mad about it.
No.
Is it a conversation that you even think should happen, or are you at this point just let it go?
I mean, I'm sure I'm the type just to let it go. It is what it is. There's sometimes my mom and I will talk, and without kind of bringing up this situation, she will apologize just for being kind of a mom who was out a lot,
not paying attention.
Yes.
Not close.
Her mind was somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
okay. Look, at the end of the day, you're the most important person. If you're good, then everybody else can live with the decisions they made. You didn't have any choices in this situation. You got put in the situation and it happened to you. So as long as you're good with it, that's really all that matters. How do you feel like it's affected the way that you parent? with your children? You have a boy and a girl.
Yes, I don't trust. It's mainly when it comes to sleepovers and that type of ordeal because our kids are not out of our side. So it's not like I have to worry about who they're around because we're there. But when it comes to sleepovers, especially with my daughter,
Yeah.
and she reached that age where she had got a very close friend and, you want to sleep over.
Yeah.
The parents, and I don't say I don't trust anybody. I'm just on edge with
Extra
how I feel
precaution.
yes. I've never once
Because now
gotten
you have to expect the unexpected.
Yes.
So even if you know 100% in your mind and heart that wouldn't happen, you're still not going to go.
Right.
Just because of that one, if there is that 1% chance, I'm not going to put you in that situation. And that's difficult because your daughter ever asks, oh, can I have a sleepover? And you say no. And then what's the next question? Well, why?
Why?
Right. And then you're faced with a situation where you want to protect them, but you also want to preserve their innocence. You don't want to be like, you can't sleep over there because this happened to me. So how do you navigate through that? I mean, obviously these are conversations you have to have with your children. How do you have those conversations with them?
So I've probably had the conversation with my daughter and both of our kids at a younger age than you would typically have to because there's just things that you need to be aware of.
I don't even think Maddie was walking yet before I started having this conversation with her. That's just, I thought about it every day when I had my kids. So I understand that.
Yes. But as far as staying the night somewhere, again, she's only stayed 2 houses. And I say this because those parents in that family are so genuinely good. But you still can't trust anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
But you just, if you ever met somebody and just got this gut feeling like something's just not right there,
Go with that.
go with it.
Yeah. Your
For
gut's
never
never going to lie to you.
For these 2 families, and I just don't. And of course, and I've even had talks with the mothers. Don't you take her?
You're right.
You don't leave them in any, and just the same as I would do.
Then, I mean, in this day and age, you got to be prepared for anything. There's women who abuse young women or young men. Like, it's just, it's the crazy world we live in, and it's tough. And we talked about it before. Your kids are so innocent.
Yes.
You don't want to. They just want to go have a sleepover at their friend's house. They don't get it, and it's hard to tell them no when you know that that's something that would really make them happy. And it's just so unfortunate that because what happened to us always being in the back of our mind, like it's almost like it's stealing their innocence. And they don't even know it. Right. And it sucks. It really does. But I think the way that we live in a time right now where children being abused is a hot topic. There's a lot of talk about it. Unfortunately, a lot of it is revolved around political things, conspiracy theories and whatnot. And that kind of does a disservice to people like yourself, people like me. Like, you want to hashtag save the children, start in your home, okay? That's where you start. Have these conversations, the difficult conversations, and let people know, let your children know, hey, it's unfortunate, but this is the kind of world we live in. You got to keep your head on a swivel. I'll tell my kids all the time. And like we said earlier, trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, if an adult tells you that anything is a secret that you're going to keep from your parents, no, that's not a thing. Like, you run and you tell somebody, preferably myself, your mother, immediately get out of that situation. And like you said, I don't like my kids to go sleep over because I don't even want them to have to be in that situation.
Yep.
And they'll say, "Oh, can we go sleep over at so and so's house?" And I'll say, "No, they can come here." But then I put myself in that parent situation. Like,
we've been in that situation multiple times.
Right.
I said they're always more than welcome to come stay here. I know we're safe.
But now that parent,
I don't know.
Yeah,
They don't.
Yeah.
That parent has to trust that their kid is safe to come here. And I've had some parents just willingly, go sleep at the Stevenson's house. And I'm like,
that's concerning too because they don't know you.
I've never even met you.
But see, and I also feel that goes back to maybe somebody who has not gone through it. Their mind doesn't go there.
Doesn't go there.
They don't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They don't make that connection. And
but it's got to,
yes.
Unfortunately. Yeah. And I know, I don't want to say I don't have any regrets in my life for the most part. I don't wish that didn't happen to me because I feel like it's made me aware and it's made me, put me in a better position to educate and protect my children. But it's just unfortunate that this is even a conversation that has to be had. Your kids should be able to go spend the night with a friend, and you have not a worry in the world. Got a kid-free night. Hey, now it's a date night with the husband and wife. Like, unfortunately, like, these are the things that you have to think of. But, you know, this experience, it's gonna make you a more. Every time I know that I would think about my childhood, you know, I just want to do a little bit better than my parents did.
Absolutely.
And I know that that's what you're trying to do. That you're making sure that you're aware, you're involved, you know what's going on, and you want your kids to do that for their kids. And that's how we affect some real change. Now, you said to me when we were talking, like, it's inspired you. The reason you like to work with kids is because you want to protect them. And even when it came down to doing Tiffy, obviously you were just the team mom or president or whatever, and that didn't have anything to do with abuse, but you just want to be involved and volunteer your time.
Kids that I kind of am just always going towards. I don't even realize it, but every time I'm with kids again, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. And they're just so innocent, and they deserve to keep that for sure.
To keep
as
that.
long
And
as
just
they can.
be happy and live their childhood the way they should.
The world's hard enough when you're an adult.
And you know, even being involved in those kids, you still don't know what some of those kids are going home to.
Mm-hmm.
They could be coming to practice and everything looks great, and sometimes you see somebody, you know, you don't know. So with you being involved in kids, you could be the change or that happy face they saw that day.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the positive in all of that.
In that thought process, or in line with that, can you tell the story you told me last night when we were doing show prep? You said you were a young kid, you were in school, and you were just staring at a group of parents who were having lunch with their kids at school. Do you want to tell that story? I didn't tell that to Chris.
This is another story I remember in full detail. I was probably, I would say, 3rd, 4th grade. So this had to have been occurring for me at home. I'm dealing with this stuff at home.
Right.
And I'm sitting in the Deer Park Elementary cafeteria, and I see, at the time, the visitor table was a circle in the middle of the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 moms with their daughters having lunch, and I'm just in awe of it. First of all, I'm in a single mom home. My mom is just working. Mm-hmm. For her to even get out and meet some of these other moms is just not kind of her thing.
Right.
So I'm just staring back like, that just looks like so much fun. Eating lunch with your friends, and then your moms are friends, and that's kind of neat. Yeah. How do they even coordinate that? How do they know each other?
Yeah.
And they just all look so happy, and I didn't realize maybe I was just staring too hard and trying to figure all this out. Like, that looks like a nice little life.
Yeah.
And this mom, I guess, notices that I'm staring at them. And finally...
We'll call her Karen for now.
You know, it's crazy because these girls don't know the story and that I remember it, but I'm friends with them now. And
okay.
Their moms are the sweetest things. But that day, the mom looked over and she kind of whispered over to the other ladies, like, why is that girl staring over here? Yeah. And not so nicely. The look on her face did not look happy that I was staring at them.
Right.
Didn't realize it, but she doesn't know what I was thinking. That, you know, how nice that looked.
You were just sit there admiring and wishing that you could be a part of something like that.
And that right there, it just kind of like broke me.
Yeah, hurt your feelings.
That's rude, you know? Yeah. And then that's what I was telling Nick. You know, even as adults, we go through day by day and we go eat lunch with our kids, and there could be a kid there maybe staring at you. Mm-hmm. Nothing rude or bad, but you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you just...
It's so easy to forget what it was like when you were a kid.
Yeah.
When you're going through all the hustle and bustle of being an adult, of going through everyday life, and you forget sometimes, like, when you were a kid, the littlest thing like that could mean so much to you. And if that woman would have looked at you and smiled and waved, or even said, hey, you want to come sit with us? Yeah. Like
that would have made my whole school year.
Yeah. Just something little like that. And, you know, I said I wanted to end on a positive note, and you've taken something that's negative and you've let it transform your mind and your heart into something positive. And I know you mentioned that you're always looking for the next way to volunteer, to help with kids, to volunteer your time. Because of COVID-19, you know, you said you would kind of been forced to leave work and you're looking for your next move, and you already knew that, like, I want to do something with kids. And that's the silver lining here. Right now, when I see all this stuff on the internet, people posting memes and hashtags, and then that's the extent of what they're doing. Like, you want to help kids, put your money where your mouth is.
Thank you.
Go volunteer.
Thank you.
At CPS or any other of the programs that are available to help children. Don't just walk around with a picket sign, yelling and screaming hashtags and sharing memes. Like, do something about it. And then it becomes more, because really, if you think about it, if all you're doing is sharing a hashtag and sharing memes, you're just as guilty as exploiting those children as the people who are actually exploiting them, because you're not doing anything to help them. You're using them this in a different way, but you're still using them. So I'm just inspired by the fact that you took a negative and you rolled it over into something positive, and you've done good things with your life, and it's just the start. You're going to continue to do more, and we're very humbled that you came to sit at our table and tell this story and talk about it, because it's an important subject, and it's something that I hope someone will hear, that maybe they went through something similar, or maybe their kids are going through something and they hadn't noticed, and now maybe they'll listen to this and they'll pick up on some of those signs. If me and Chris talk about, if this podcast, no matter what episode we do, if one person, if it makes a change for them, then we've done our job, and you've done your job as well. So we're really appreciative of you coming.
Yeah, thank you. That was definitely my goal. I knew I always wanted to share my story, more or less, for the people who may not have talked about it.
Right. A voice for the voiceless.
Yes, and that it is okay. You can talk about it. It will do wonders to maybe anything you're feeling about it. There's nothing wrong with us. We deserve to live our life and take that stress off of our shoulders.
I did mean to ask you, have you have you gone through any type of therapy, or is this something that you're...
No, and that's kind of always in the back of my mind. I've a good friend of mine has like a therapist that, you know, she goes and talks to, and I've asked for their information multiple times because I'm like, I probably should, for multiple reasons,
right.
As you know,
because there's things that in our past can affect us that we don't even realize are affecting us.
Yes.
And these things that you say, you talked about your mind blocking certain things out. The fact of the matter is that memory is still in your brain. You're not able to recall it or retrieve it, but it's there. And it could be having an effect on you. And like I said before, you're doing swell. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here telling you that you need a therapist or anything. But we've got to take this stigma off of our mental health, that somehow if you go seek therapy, that you're weak or you're weird or there's something wrong with you. Mental illness is something that I don't care who's listening, where you are in the world, you've dealt with it, some type of it, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, you've dealt with some type of mental disorder or illness, and everybody on the planet has to face it. And I've done therapy at times. I've even been medicated before. It was something I told myself I'm not going to be medicated forever, but it took swallowing a whole lot of pride to say, I need some help. And that's another thing I hope that we can help people understand, is that is okay. If you went through something that was difficult, it's cool. And I used to have this thing that I thought therapists thought they were better than you. And then I talked to a few and I realized they're people just like us. The only difference is they went to a school that taught them some coping mechanisms that they're now sharing with you. Yeah. So,
I don't know what those what they have to listen to and what they're taking home. I'm
like
sure
who's the counselor's counselor?
Yes,
exactly. I've thought about that many times, but
who's the counselor's counselor?
But once again, just thank you. We appreciate you trusting us to tell this story. Is there anything you want to add to it or say to the world as they listen?
I do want to say thank you to you guys. I don't know if you're aware of what y'all do put out there. It is very real and raw, and that's what
we
just got me hooked. I'm like, there's just, you want to put off like you have it all together and nobody's really gone through some stuff.
Yeah.
And y'all talk about things. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're all really normal. Like, and I think that helps a lot of people.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's what makes
truly
us
amazing.
Yeah, that's what makes us sit here and do this. Me and Chris have talked about all the time that the one thing I said we would not compromise on is we would be ourselves and we would be honest and we would be raw. And whether it's been him telling stories about when he was young and when he was acting a fool, or me talking about being young and doing stupid things in my previous marriage, like, what it will do is encourage other people to say, you know what, I can have some honesty. I can share some truth, and it feels so much better just to let it out. Like, it's hard to play a character.
Yes.
And we've all been guilty of it. When we first joined Tiffy, I was playing a character for a little while because I didn't know a lot of these people. And then
it's almost like you have to kind of do that.
Yeah.
Like when you go into a ginormous organization like that, it's you gotta take this hat off and put this hat on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I'm not gonna be, hi, my name's Nick and I was molested when I was 3. Like,
Right.
Of course.
But at the same time, I will say, because I'm gonna close on this. When we joined Tiffy, I love my wife. Because of the trust issues that I had growing up and the stuff that I've been through, I've always kept my circle extremely small. Excuse me. I love my wife because she wanted to embrace everybody. And I saw a parent who, the only thing we had in common is that our kids played on the same football team. You've never been to my house. We've never had a real conversation. We've never talked about the real life stuff. But they're like all hugging each other. Oh, I love you so much. And like, I would see my wife tell somebody that I have no idea who the fuck this person is. We know nothing about them, what they do. Oh, I love you. And I'm like, how can you tell somebody you love them? Like,
yeah.
Before I tell somebody I love you, we're going to go through some real life shit together. Okay? Like, you're going to have seen me ass out before I'm going to tell you I love you, and we go through stuff like that. And honestly, I think I took that a little too far. I had to soften up a little bit. I remember wishing, like, I cannot wait to get out of this fucking organization. I cannot wait to be done with Tiffy. And then the last time we were a part of it was Maddie's banquet, and I got so fucking emotional I couldn't even give my speech. Like, I was telling the parents, like, I know you think you don't want to be here, but it's over quick.
Yeah.
It's over quick. And talk about the perfect place to see kids just being kids, man. Tiffy was it. When it was about the kids, it was one of the best things I've ever been a part of. Unfortunately, sometimes when adults get involved and they make it about themselves,
it can ruin it all.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm thankful that we were there, because that's how we met you. And I consider you a friend. I consider you in our circle. And I've told you, now that you know that we're just a mile down the road, like, we should do this again. We'll get together and we'll chop it up. I'll tell you all my dark skeletons in the closet.
Well, no,
you really want to know.
I think I told you after episode 1 or 2, I was texting Whitney. I'm like, hey, can you tell Nick and Chris, like, we're best friends and they don't even know it. Like, we have so much in common. Yeah. And she was just giggling. And
That's what's up. Well, I look forward to us spending more time together. I know our kids would definitely like to get together. So you are a friend of the family, friend of the show, a supporter of the show, and we appreciate you very much. Chris, did you have anything else to add before we get out of here, man? I know that story was difficult to hear at points.
Yeah, that's I don't.
As someone who hasn't been through it, does it kind of make you think, like, man,
I just keep putting myself in that situation to where, like, I figure out something has happened and I don't know how to explain it. Yeah. Like, I feel like there would be nothing that would keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah, and this is what I'll say, Chris, just count yourself fortunate and blessed that you didn't go through it, and that you got to hear someone else's story, and it brought awareness that maybe you wouldn't have had. Yeah, and that's where I say, go with that and accept it. Like, I'm glad, feel blessed that I didn't go through that. Thank other people for telling their story. So now it raises some awareness on you. And with that awareness, I will say, as much as, you
don't know to trust the outside people that you're meeting new and your kids are making friends with. A lot of this is within the family.
Yeah.
That's the scary part because that's who you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunately, statistically, a lot of the times victims are people you know, people you feel like, because you're not going to let your kid walk away with a stranger.
Yeah.
You're going to allow them to be around people that you think you can trust. And that's why it's tough, man. Because, you know, I love you guys. I wouldn't think twice about sending my kids to your house. Of course. And I'm never going to, like, even with what's going on to me. Like, I wouldn't think twice about it. But, you know, it's one of those things you try to live in this bubble and hope that the rest of the world don't get into it. That's why I said, but we keep our circle small. Yeah. So feel lucky. You're in it. You're in it.
And as much as I tend to catch myself focusing on girls. Watch your daughter. Can't forget about the boys.
Yeah. Boys go through it
that's
too.
Also another big.
Boys go through it too, for sure.
Big thing.
For sure. Well, Raquel, I've enjoyed having this conversation. Like I said, it was difficult at times, but I hope that we did what was intended to do. We raised some awareness and we encouraged and gave somebody the strength to maybe tell their story. Absolutely. And find some justice, because not everything has a statute of limitations. Like I'm telling you right now, don't be afraid. Have a good support system. And I don't know, we just want to see our kids happy. That's, as a parent, that's the only thing you want in this world, is to see them grow up happy and be successful. So put your money where your mouth is, and it starts in your home. Yep. All right, so we want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you to all the Spirit Sifters for supporting us. Please continue to follow our show content. You can follow us on YouTube. We have our own URL now. It's YouTube/C/Smells Like Middle Aged Spirit Podcast. And we are currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So please go check us out. Continue to like, continue to share. Thank you, everybody, for listening. For our guest, Raquel Stewart, my name is Nick Stevenson.
And my name is Chris Clark, and we'll see y'all next time.
You've been listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit Podcast with Nick and Chris. For more show content, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.